you may want to be able to connect to. But the goal of web services is to make it easier to do that. You're basically making the data available at a level where systems can hook in and grab it and pull it out. That's what it boils down to.
So what framework are you on?
Our software, we're on the .NET framework. So we've got a SQL Server backend, .NET framework. We've got an application programming interface so that you can do your own kind of development and hook into the web services to access that information. Okay, number 8, resource management. So I have a customer who started using our software about maybe a year ago. And their biggest problem when they came to us was they were an IT services shop. They used ITIL to manage their IT services organization. They had about 40 people on their team. And every year their board came to them and said, these are the 30 projects that we need you to do this year. However, their 40 people spent about 95% of their time just keeping their IT organization assets that they did have moving in the operational phase, right? They had to answer the help desk, apply upgrades, apply patches, maintain their servers. And they didn't really have a way to justify to that board why they couldn't do the 30 new projects that the board wanted them to. And so they needed a way to do better capacity planning and better resource planning and make that justification better than just walking in and saying, look, we're really overworked. We can't do any more work. They needed objective justification for why they couldn't accept that work. And so a lot of what we are seeing right now is organizations are being asked to do more with less resources, and they need a way to better track their resource capacity so that they can justify what they're really able to take on as an organization. So again, these are some examples of the types of reports and capabilities that project managers need in order to be able to do this. So it's being able to look at the availability of your resources and not only know what their allocation is on your project, but also knowing if they're allocated to other projects in the organization and what your real capacity is when you have 40 people in an IT services organization and how many new projects you can do versus just keeping the lights on and keeping everything moving and going with what your operational requirements are. This is an example of a resource capacity report, and so also the idea behind this new resource focus is being able to plan better for hiring. So being able to better staff the open positions and looking at, do we really have the right resources for the pipeline of projects that we have coming up in our queue? So I thought this was kind of funny, and I don't know if it was just me, but a few weeks ago, the CEO of PMI was at our company speaking to us at one of our staff meetings, and someone raised their hand and said, what do you think the biggest trend in project management is? And he said, portfolios. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting, because to me, portfolios has been around for a while, and it's a little bit different than projects. But what he was really saying was, people are starting to get out of just focusing on silos of projects that are being executed and really looking at the portfolio picture. And I also thought this was kind of funny. He said, portfolio management is project management for adults. And I think what he was saying was, again, that idea of if you're going to be selecting projects, you want to be making more intelligent decisions about which projects you're selecting and actually looking at what is your resource capacity, what is your risk threshold and your risk tolerance, and is the balance of projects, the mix of projects that you're executing in line with that risk tolerance. This is an example of what a portfolio dashboard looks like in our tool. And it's got a lot of different information here because you're really concerned from a portfolio's perspective about finances, strategic initiatives, current status of all of your active projects, risk distribution across all of your different projects. So it's looking holistically at all of the different knowledge areas and traditional components of project management, but bringing it up to a portfolio level picture. Okay, number 10. We call this one, oh, I'm sorry.
Does that WorkLenz have the ability to apply weights to projects based on, factors within the project? So you're not just looking at a blank graph, you're looking at, this project is weighted 8 versus 4 because
it needs to be done next week versus, 4 months.
Yeah, yeah. That's actually one of the things I'm going to talk a little bit about here in the business intelligence piece. So we're on the same wavelength, I think. But yeah, absolutely, because you've got projects and some are going to have higher value. At one point in time, there may be more importance placed on resource demand or resource capacity when you're looking at projects. 6 months later, you may be more focused on the financial aspect or the value that the project's bringing. So there's different weighting factors that you definitely need to be able to apply. I think that that's a minimum requirement for a portfolio management tool. You have to be able to put different weighting factors in when you're looking at making those types of decisions. So we call this one smarter technology, and this is the idea that people want the technology to give them things back. I don't want to just have to put data into a system for the sake of putting data into the system. I want it to give me things and show me things and do things for me. So there's a lot of different ways that can happen, and I'm just going to go through a couple of them here in terms of how that applies to what we do. So the first one is the idea that I already talked about, which is the taxonomy, and it's really this idea of it's more than just a hierarchy, it's more than just an inventory of projects that we're doing, but it's trying to create this interrelated network of the activities that are going on in an organization, the risks associated with those, the resources, and this whole idea of kind of this interrelated network of activities. So the second thing is using kind of web collaboration concepts to give more information back to the users. So here what you have is an example of a tag cloud. And the tag cloud is looking at all of the different data in the system, and it is applying what we call natural language processing. So it's looking at the words that are being used, finding synonyms between those words, and then telling you what the most important concepts are out of that. So here, for example, if you're familiar with tag clouds, the bigger the word appears, the more often it's being used in a project.